A lot of people share the beauty of living abroad and traveling, the new experiences and the amazing photos. But no one talks about the challenges that come with moving to a new country or adapting to an international life. In today's video, I'm going to be honest about what it's really like, sharing my personal experiences of moving abroad as a teenager, in my 20s, and again in my 30s. But before getting into the details, let me give you a bit of background, especially for those of you who are new here. I'm originally Persian, and like many of you, I always had the dream of living an international life. Over the years, I've had the chance to live, study, or work in the U.S., Italy, and the Netherlands. And I've been living abroad for about 13 years now, and I know exactly how it feels. My goal is to share what I've learned so that it might make your own experience living abroad a little easier. So let's start with the most obvious one. One of the biggest challenges is the language barrier. It's not just about learning a new language. It's about feeling like you can't fully express yourself because you're not as fluent or natural in this new language. This alone can really impact your confidence. I went through this myself twice in my life. The first time was when I moved to the US at 17. I knew English pretty well, but the fear of making mistakes, being judged or laughed at, stopped me from showing who I truly was. The second time was in Italy, where I didn't know any Italian, and it was a very frustrating feeling because I believed I had so much to offer, but I couldn't fully show it. In both of these cases, I felt like I was invisible. I know, as a non-native speaker, it's easy to feel behind when you compare yourself to native speakers. This can destroy your confidence because you start to tie your self-worth to your language skills. And the videos online don't help, with all of them focusing on how to sound like a native speaker or be like a native speaker. For the longest time, I held myself back too, trying to be perfect. But perfection doesn't exist. This started to change when I realized I needed a more balanced approach to language learning. It's true that learning the language is important, but that's not the only thing we need if we want to use the language and live abroad. So I realized that focusing 100% of the time on learning only the language wasn't going to help me become a confident and effective communicator. Because I saw with my experience moving to the US, the problem wasn't the language, but it was something else. I also remember that I had friends who didn't know the language really well, but were able to communicate with confidence and effectively because of knowing specific skills. After more than 10 years of teaching and coaching non-native speakers, I finally realized what were the missing pieces, and I found the answer in a holistic approach. That's why in my courses we focus not only on the language but on the other skills that can help you feel confident and communicate well. If you're interested in learning the kind of language you need in real life, I've prepared a free mini training for you that you can check it out in the description. When you move abroad, one of the first things that hit you is the cultural differences. I have many funny stories about this. For example, in Persian culture, when we call someone, we start with a long introduction and small talk, asking about the family, life, how things are going, before even mentioning why we're calling. But when I was in the US, people would get straight to the point when they called. A typical phone call would be like, hey, what did you do for the project? And that's it. So at first, it was like a big cultural shock for me because I thought this was rude, but then I realized it was just a different approach in communication. Another example in Italy was that I remember I was trying to cook pasta for a friend, and the first time I broke the pasta in half. A huge mistake. Italians take their pasta seriously. The other time I overcooked it, which was another disaster because Italians prefer their pasta al dente, which is a bit chewy. And these were little unwritten rules that could create misunderstandings which no one teaches you. And over time, I had to learn to be open to the idea of making a mistake and being different. It's all about learning how to not take things personally and finding a balance between respecting the local culture and keeping your own. And yes, I still enjoy an afternoon cappuccino, even though that's a big no in Italy. One of the hardest lessons was learning how to feel confident while being different. And I tested this in different ways. At first, I thought it's about being like others. So I tried so hard to fit in, but I started losing parts of myself. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel authentic until I realized the problem isn't about being different. It's about how to feel included and confident while being different. It was okay to be different as long as that difference didn't hurt anyone. As I started learning more about personal growth, I realized that the real issue was feeling insecure, and I had to work on my self-esteem and confidence. It was only then that I could fix it and start feeling more included. And one of the lessons I had to learn was that it's important to feel included, but also it's important to embrace being different and find the right balance. If this resonates with you, let me know in the comments and we can explore this topic more in depth in another video. One of the biggest challenges was the importance of unlearning and relearning new habits. There is this famous quote that says, "The real illiterate of the 21st century are those who can't unlearn old habits and relearn new ways of doing things." Living abroad makes you become an expert at unlearning and relearning, which is not easy. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about life abroad, because you start to question and reevaluate your ways of living. So in a way, you reinvent yourself multiple times, and this is very nice because not all the things we learn as children are good for us, and if we learn the skill of unlearning and relearning, we can literally choose who we want to become and then create that person. And in this way, we can become the designer of our lives. Most of the times, the problems we have in life is the limiting beliefs that we have from our childhood. So learning this skill can help us become better versions of ourselves. This one is a bit personal, but when you live abroad, you don't see your family as often as before. And in my case, I see them maybe only once a year, and you lose touch with old friends, which means making new friends become essential. But when you move abroad as an adult, building friendships can be really difficult. When I moved to the U.S. and Italy in my teens and early 20s, it was easier because at the time I was going to school and I had more time and everyone was looking for friends. So it made it a lot easier. But when I moved to the Netherlands in my 30s, things were a little different. Most people were busy with their own lives, work, family, and it felt harder to find friends. I had to put in extra effort to join communities, attend networking events, and meet new people if I could find the time. Of course, it's possible, but it's not as easy as when you're younger. At least this was my experience. And that's all for today's video. Let me know in the comments section which one of these topics you would like me to talk about more in depth in a separate video. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.